fantasy football fans! You're watching the best draft party in the world.
Can't wait.
This is a 12-team full PPR.
Yeah.
16 round, 5. Figure it out. 11. No Saquon.
With the first pick of the 2019 Fantasy Football Draft, even though I'm wearing Stanford hat, I'm going to take Saquon Barkley.
Boo! With the second overall pick of the Fantasy Couch 2019 Draft, Team Fornication chooses Christian McCaffrey.
There you go.
Oh!
For the third overall pick in the 2019 Fantasy Couch Draft, Team Mother Buckner selects Alvin Kamara.
Who?
Where's my belt?
Yeah.
Oh my! You see this? Rating champ right here, baby. Come see me. Oh. Okay. I'll take the haters up there.
You got a target on your head, bud.
Target me. All right.
Let's reach.
With the fourth overall pick in the Fantasy Couch League.
Dolphins defense.
No. James White Walker chooses Davion Bell.
Wow.
With the fifth pick in the Fantasy Football League Draft, Team Miami Vice selects Nick Chubb.
I like that. Oh, boo.
Read your life.
Yes. Nice bigs looking good.
No. 7th looking better and better.
And the sixth overall pick for the 2019 Fantasy Football Fantasy Couch Draft, Tyreek Hill chooses Tyreek Hill.
Yes. YouTube comments.
That's the best pick.
Reach.
With the 7th pick of the 2019 Fantasy Couch Fantasy Football Draft, MacPack selects Z.
What? Boo!
With the 8th pick in the Fantasy Couch 2019 Draft, Team Blessing selects DeAndre Hopkins.
A normal pick.
With the 9th pick of the 2019 Fantasy Couch Football Draft, Alvin Kamara selects Davante Adams.
Yeah! I like it.
With the 10th pick of the Fantasy Couch Fantasy Football Draft, Richard German selects Odell Beckham Jr.
Odell Beckham Jr.
With the 11th pick in the Fantasy Couch 2019 Fantasy Football Draft, Team Brainchild selects DJ.
Yeah!
Team Hot Chubb Time Machine. Since they can't take Nick Chubb, it's going to take Michael Thomas and Dalvin Cook.
We didn't know what to do with the lightsaber.
That's what she said.
Who's up?
The mastermind.
JuJu on the pick.
Oh, Richard German, round 2, Todd Gurley.
James Conner. And that wasn't it.
Julio Jones.
That's that value.
Mike Evans.
Second round pick, I picked Adam Thielen.
Kelce.
What?
Kelce.
James White Walker selects Joe Mixon.
There's that.
Phillip Lindsay.
Oh my god, I was still over my mouth. That might be the word.
Reach for that top shelf.
That's good. Thank you.
Well, that topped everything.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, the
I didn't
YouTube
pick
comments
weak.
are gonna be great.
Well, they're not going to watch this far.
With the second pick, Kerryon Johnson.
Nice. Second round pick, I pick Keenan Allen.
Ooh.
And then the third round, I'll pick Antonio Brown.
Here's our complete draft board. I'll go ahead and get rid of my face cam in a little bit so you can see the entire draft board, and feel free to pause it or just go in the description. I put all the draft results written down in the YouTube description below. Just want to do a quick review, and probably on our second channel, Fantasy Couch Podcast, I'll be going more in depth with it. Maybe we'll bring someone else from the league, and Mike will likely be on too. Let's start with team 1. That's Drew. He won the league a few years ago. I like his first 5 picks. Derrick Henry, excellent value. And then people were telling me, well, we talked about the picks for a few minutes after the draft, more like several hours of nonstop talk and analysis after the draft, which was really good for what I'm doing now. So I thought Derrick Henry was amazing value. That's the last pick of round 4, so basically round 5. Absolutely love that, and I expect him to be healthy sooner than later. Then we have Miles Sanders, who a lot of people in our league thought was a reach, and I absolutely love this pick. He secured his top 2 wide receivers, he secured his top 2 running backs, and now he's going for upside. James White was taken, Devonta Freeman was taken, Jacobs was taken, Ingram was taken, Carson, Montgomery, Aaron Jones. All those guys were taken. Now it's time to go with upside, because the next best available running back, well, according to this draft board, would be around Tyreek Cohen or something, or even Tevin Coleman. He went with Miles Sanders. He's by far the most talented running back on that Eagles roster, should easily get the starting job. And if that team is good, the Eagles, which they should be, Miles Sanders should get a lot of fantasy points. And if you didn't get him there, remember, he's team 1, so he has to wait like 22 picks. He wouldn't have got him for sure on the next turn. Now, what Drew did bad, Team 1 did bad, was the Andrew Luck. Now, this is when things change, because to overcompensate with Andrew Luck, he missed out on a tight end there. Should have probably went tight end. And then you went with Mark Andrews, who I love, is a sleeper, but drafted him just a tad too early. Like, we got him in round 15 in the Throne League. Then you went with Russell Wilson in case Andrew Luck wasn't going to play. So now you're wasting a lot of mid-round picks on chasing something. I don't quite get it. I do like the Mike Williams pick, but I think that's when things took a turn for the worse for Team 1. Still a really good team, though. Just wanted to point that out on how the draft was going and what happened with that Andrew Luck pick. Just thought he should have went tight end there, and I think would have dominated in the draft. Team 2, the podium was not very kind. The lights were not very kind for Team 2, but still ended up with a solid team. Not big on taking Kerryon that early, but the talent is there. Patrick Mahomes, not big on taking a QB that early, but he is hands down the number 1 QB this year. Then he went with some solid wide receivers, solid tight ends. Actually ended up with not so bad of a team. Team 3, man, Phillip Lindsay, round 2. I think this is what we have to talk about the most. That was the worst pick in the entire draft. It was a shocker. You could have at least waited until round 3 to get him. I don't get that. You really needed to go Keenan Allen there, or even Kittle, which was very early to go Kittle there, but really anybody other than Lindsay. I mean, you got Aaron Jones, Montgomery, and these are like 15 picks later. Kerryon Johnson. There's just so many players. I got maybe about 25 players that could have went ahead of Lindsay. Could be a 50-50 split. And then from there, the draft went downhill for Team 3. And even though I believe didn't end up with a terrible team, but when you waste a pick in round 2 like that on Phillip Lindsay, who's going to be splitting time, it's just, it just really ruins your chances of winning the Super Bowl. Team 4, this is last year's champ, and I don't know what the heck's going on. Joe Mixon fell so late. I was Team 11 and hoping to get Joe Mixon there, and, we'll go over that in a second, but Joe Mixon kept falling, and this guy, Team 4, has 2 stud running backs in Bell and Mixon, and then went with Kittle, a top 2 tight end. Now, I would have went with a wide receiver round 4. I think that's a big mistake. And going with Melvin Gordon. Now, sure, I'm a Melvin Gordon hater, just gonna be completely transparent, say that. But even if you like Melvin Gordon, round 4, that is a good spot to take him. It's good value, but I think you gotta realize going wide receiver 0 there, you should have just went with the wide receiver. Could have got a guy like the top Rams wide receiver, whoever you think that is, which would have been Robert Woods, because Brandin Cooks got picked way later. So you could have got Robert Woods, Kenny Golladay, and you still ended up with Calvin Ridley. But just picture if you had Robert Woods and Ridley, or Tyler Lockett and Ridley, or Golladay, you know, those 2 top 20 wide receivers instead of just 1. And then you ended up with Larry Fitzgerald, who's okay, but you have to draft him a little. So now you're a step behind on the wide receiver train. Right now you're like, I got to play catch up. Let me go all out and try to get a wide receiver. And that was your Larry Fitzgerald. Still ended up with a great team though, because you got Sanders. I don't know. I think that really, I think you really needed to go there. Look, if Melvin Gordon plays week 1, plays 14, 15, 16 games, you got a great squad. But if he doesn't, you're going to be struggling at wide receiver, and that's just no good. I really would have tried to get a couple upside running backs and just went wide receiver there. Your team would have been so solid. Still never counting Team 4 out. He almost beat me when I won the league a couple years ago. Team 5, Nick Chubb went super early. Never see him go that early. Then went Kelce. This is a glaring issue here. Speaking of wide receivers, you got Allen Robinson, who people made fun of me for having him as my wide receiver 3. I don't get that. That's my wide receiver 3. You're going to really make fun of me? Well, here's a team who has him as his wide receiver 1. To be fair, he did go with some upside wide receivers and got great value with Robbie Anderson, Christian Kirk, and Will Fuller. So it is kind of twisting it to make a entertaining and strong point saying A-Rob is his wide receiver 1, because he really did draft 3 wide receivers after that back-to-back who are all basically like on the same level as Allen Robinson. So you have a low-end wide receiver 2 in Allen Robinson, maybe a super high-end wide receiver 3, and then you have the same thing with Robbie A, Christian Kirk, and Will Fuller. Like, all 4 are pretty good. So even though it was looking really bad taking A-Rob as your wide receiver 1, you're very fortunate enough to get a lot, like quality and quantity, with your next 3 picks. And then Delaney Walker is your second to last pick. I'm not a fan of Walker. He's getting up there in age, but after talking to Dr. Raj, he expects Walker to ball out. Just might start off really rusty, and you don't really need him because you have Kelce. So that's good trade bait in the middle of the season, right before the trade deadline, when Walker starts balling if he stays healthy. Thought it was a good value pick. Then we have Team 6, which is, you know, if someone's going to get the F- on the podcast, I think we got a good candidate here. I'm trying to go and think how this guy was thinking, and I'm just going to take some wild guesses. I'm probably wrong, but his name was some kind of play on Tyreek Aleek, or Tyreek Akeek, whatever, I don't know, but maybe that's why you went Tyreek Hill and took him as the number 1 wide receiver off the board. I just never saw any rankings with Tyreek as the number 1. I'm high on him. He's a top 5 wide receiver for me. Big plays, love him. But to take him over Adams, who's the most consistent wide receiver, or Hopkins, who's just so talented overall, just a huge Hopkins fan, is just kind of weird. And Mike Thomas too. Like, Mike Thomas, he may not make the splashy plays and get big plays every time, but how consistent he is, and he's got a Hall of Fame quarterback. Just kind of weird you take Tyreek Hill and that early, and then you went Adam Thielen, Ertz. So now we're basically going RB0. And then this is also my thinking. Is this the first time this guy played PPR? Maybe he's overcompensating. Maybe he's played standard every year, non-PPR, and then goes, oh, it's a full point per reception. Let me take James White as my RB1. Who else catches balls? Tariq Cohen. And then this was the weirdest. This is the weirdest pick in the entire draft, actually, not just this team. Nyheim Hines over like half the board. I don't get this. The next pick was Austin Eckler. Who's better than Nyheim Hines? Because Austin Eckler is going to have a role with Melvin Gordon. Like, guaranteed. Pretty much guaranteed. And he's going to have a huge role. Probably get like 60% of the touches and snaps if Melvin Gordon is out. So Eckler is far more valuable than Nyheim Hines. Like, this is just weird. I don't get that pick. Sure, I was high on him last year, but we know his role now. And I also got him much later last year. And I don't get it. I mean, Marlon Mack has to get hurt. And even if he gets hurt, Nyheim Hines probably not a 3-down back. So the draft pretty much started going downhill after you picked Hill in round 1. Team 7 was Mike's team. Love this team. Did very good. I don't like Zeke that early with that much of a risk at 7, but it's not crazy either because he usually goes around 5. So I like him around 9. So taking him at 7 is not crazy. I'm really the only bad thing about this team, I'm going to say, because the Zeke thing is debatable. We both believe he'll be signed week 1. And I had him as my number 1 running back if this holdout situation and these TMZ situations and all these other situations didn't exist. But yeah, we'll be playing the if game. We're not going to be playing the if game. Round 10, instead of Metcalf, I would have took Tony Pollard. You had to do that right there. And I don't know, me and him like a lot of the same picks. Maybe he was trying to take Metcalf before I did or just take Metcalf before anyone else did. But right there, instead of Metcalf, you go Tony Pollard and secure that handcuff. Team 8, talked about his team. He did very well. Not much to complain. I got an open mind. And I just told him, like, hey, I would have took Joe Mixon there. He said he didn't want to go wide receiver, but couldn't pass up on Julio. I would have, because after Mixon, there's just a little bit of a fall off on running backs, and I'm just a big Mixon fan. I would have took Mixon. He would have had a number 1 wide receiver and a top 7 running back. And I just feel like you can't beat that. Even though Julio's is dropping, I would have let him drop. That's cool. You got your wide receiver. Team 9. Not a big fan of Connor, but other than that, I like this team. Did pretty well. Drafted Ingram a little bit early. But hey, that's just my opinion. I know you guys don't share the same exact opinion and are high on Ingram. Team 10, that's Jeremy. He hasn't won the league in a while, and last year had a disastrous draft. I counted only 1 player that panned out for him out of his 16 picks. This year he did much better, but still taking risky, unorthodox picks and reaching for players like AJ Green and Josh Gordon. And Eric Ebron. I don't know. I think that's chasing those 2018 stats. Still, even though I don't like his team, I don't think he did well. He still could win. Like I said, he did much better than he did last year. Just check out last year's video if you don't believe me. Then my team, who I think is the one that I need to talk about the most, maybe other than Team 6, I was just genuinely freaked out that David Johnson was falling so much. So I had to Google him and look up any news, and I'm like, David Johnson at 11. I was hoping for Mixon, got DJ. How could I pass up on that? And then I would have loved to get Mixon in round 2, sure, but hey, if there's a top 8, top 7 wide receiver, I'm not going to pass up on him. And I have JuJu solidified in the top 5. I mean, he's really top 3 wide receiver on my rankings. I had to take him there in a PPR league. He's going to get so many targets. And although I don't like Big Ben necessarily in fantasy that much, he is still a really good quarterback. And man, JuJu is going to ball out. So I'm very happy with my first 2 picks. Then we got Montgomery, who I would have drafted way earlier. I'm so glad I was able to get Monty at the end of round 3. Then I got my other, this is a dream so far. Then I got my other guy, Chris Godwin, who's going to get well over 100 targets. This guy could get 100 receptions on the Bucs. They're going to be passing a lot. Their defense sucks. They have the quarterback whisperer in their head coach, so I got my guy there. Then Tevin Coleman, not excited about that pick, but I felt like, if Mahomes was there, for example, it's a bad example, but I would have took Mahomes for sure. Obviously, you're not going to get him in round 5. That's crazy. But I felt like in case the draft went sour for me, something bad, I wanted to get the best running back available. And that would have been Miles Sanders for me. I have him maybe 1 rank ahead of Tevin Coleman. And I wasn't able to get Miles Sanders because Team 1 took him super early. But I was able to get Tevin Coleman, who should be the number 1 running back on the 49ers. All the running backs ball out. Kyle Shanahan makes a star out of any running back, whether it be Mostert, Breida, or even Carlos Hyde, and then ship off Carlos Hyde for sure. And I think Tevin Coleman should be able to do it. not too crazy about that pick because there is Matt Breida there. Jerick McKinnon probably won't be able to stay healthy, but he is there. He is talented and can catch the ball. Regardless, I'm not disappointed in the pick. I'm not mad because the draft didn't go sour after that. I still like it. And then I went with OJ Howard because I have to wait 20 picks. And I was afraid that all the top 9 tight ends were going to get taken. And actually, I wasn't too far off. The top 8 tight ends were taken. And if Jeremy, Team 10, did draft Njoku there, I would have been right and not had a top 9 tight end. Still, I got OJ Howard. I like that. Royce Freeman, great value. Sterling Shepard, he's staying near healthy now. He's practicing. That's excellent value there as well to get my wide receiver 3. Absolutely love that pick. He should get a ton of targets on the Giants. Then I got Devin Singletary, who's very talented, should be really good, but just down on the totem pole. If Shady and Gore were not to play, Devin Singletary should ball out. Then this is where a lot of people question my picks, and actually make sure you read the draft board right, because I got Jameis Winston early round 10, so that's 10.2, so the second pick of round 10, and that's my QB1. My main worry with Jameis Winston, other than what other people think, is that I have a lot of Buccaneers players. And that's why at 11.11, so towards the end of round 11, I liked 3 players right there. And that was Cutie, Justice Hill, and Kyler Murray. And I saw that Scout, Team 12, had Deshaun Watson, but he probably wasn't going to take a second quarterback. But my intuition told me to take Kyler Murray and just hope that I'll get Justice Hill or Cutie. Because I like 3 players and I'm only getting 2. And so I'm not going to be able to get all 3. I only got 2 picks there. My intuition said, go Kyler. I went with Kyler. I hoped that either Cutie or Hill would fall. I'd be equally happy with either one. And what happened was, a couple rounds later, Scout came up to me and expressed a little bit that I took his Kyler pick, and I just wanted to clarify. And I was like, so if I didn't take Kyler, would you have? And he said probably yes. So my intuition was correct on there, and that's good that I went with Kyler. I mean, I thought Kyler was I thought he would have got picked earlier, maybe round 9 or 10, but because he had one bad week 2 preseason game, I was like, look, there's a good chance he's going to fall to me round 11. So let me go, get some wide receivers and running backs like a Singletary and Shepard. I love players like that with upside, or Shepard doesn't necessarily have upside, but I think he'll get a ton of targets. But Devin Singletary is kind of like a guy just to stash on your bench. It means my RB4. I don't need to start him. Actually, sorry, RB5. I definitely don't need to start him until Shady gets hurt, traded, or cut or something. And then, man, I got me every week starter, Devin Singletary. Then, thankfully, Sco went with Austin Hooper, and I was able to get Justice Hill. So absolutely like it. Now I know I needed some upside wide receivers since I didn't get Cutie. Would have loved getting Cutie. And what is that? Round 12 right there. That would have been great. But hey, I got Justice Hill, solidified my RB6. I'll be good to go. Another big upside RB who should get some touches even in the beginning of the year. He's just that talented and can catch the ball on the Ravens. Then I went with Jalen Hurd, and this was my strategy basically to block Mike. I knew that I can probably get Traquan Smith around later. I knew I may not have, but even if I didn't get Traquan Smith, I felt like I would be able to find some wide receiver or some kind of pick there, or maybe take a defense. I don't know. I felt like risking it because, and I was right, by the way, Mike would have took Jalen Hurd in the next round. So I took Jalen Hurd, huge upside wide receiver. I think he's very talented, and Shanahan will use him a lot. I don't see how Debo and Hurd won't start along with Dante Pettis. Then I went with the Bills defense because they have some sweet matchups the first 3 weeks. They have a lot of upside, a lot of young players, good corners, good linebacker. I loved Ed Oliver. I thought the Giants would have drafted him, but Ed Oliver fell to the Giants, and man, does this guy have a lot of upside. He has, I believe, some bustability, but as far as being exciting and the upside, it's definitely there. And I thought it was a great value pick. Even though the Bills had a top 10 pick, still Ed Oliver. I'm just so excited to watch the Bills defense play. And their offense should be exciting too. So, hey, Bills D, go get me some points. Shady, get out of here and give Devin Singletary more touches. I'm sure it's exactly going to work just like that. Then I got Michael Badgley. I think I already dropped him. Ready to go add a real player. I like Michael Badgley. I got him as a top 10 kicker, sure, but I don't really care. I'm going to hoard another player and see what happens. I'll be able to pick up a kicker later. And Team 12, basically like my team, but a little bit worse. At least that's what people are saying. Team 12, Scout did pretty good. I think wide receiver depth's not really all that good. I don't think even he likes Dante Pettis. Just felt like he was falling. I don't like taking a Niners wide receiver early. And I know for Pettis, that's not early, but still, I wouldn't take Pettis in the top 8 rounds. I just wouldn't do it. Curtis Samuel was also good value. Kalen Ballage, decent value. So he did pretty good.
Calvin Ridley.
Come on, RJ. No more shirt offs.
Darius Squeezy.
Setting up these draft parties every year and filming and editing these videos take a lot of work. If you want to show your support and you do enjoy this, make sure you do subscribe to this YouTube channel. It really helps out a lot. I really appreciate it. And hit that thumbs up. Also subscribe to our second channel, Fantasy Couch Podcast, where we'll go more in depth with this draft party and these draft results and probably give some team grades. I'll see you on the next video /livestream/podcast.